This incredible story took place in Canada. When Sean was on his way home after a successful day of fishing, he decided to take a shortcut through the bushes instead of the usual path. At that moment, the greatest shock of his life hit him. He had just walked a few meters off the path when suddenly a huge black bear appeared right in front of him. The bear was so close that he could see her nose move as she breathed. The man tried to stay calm and behave as he had learned. He raised his arms and made himself appear larger to seem more intimidating and less like potential prey. The bear stood on its hind legs and sniffed him. She was really dangerously close. It was frightening. But then the bear sat down and started to glimmer. He initially moved away, ready to retreat, but her painful groaning made him turn around. He noticed that the bear had a series of cuts on her side. Her front paw also seemed injured. This could make the situation even more dangerous. The bear, however, didn't seem to pose a threat. Instead, it just looked dejected. Sean remembered the early morning. On the other side of the river was a mother bear with her cub. This was probably the same bear. But what had happened that caused her injuries? And where was the bear cub? This thought made Sean spring into action immediately. He realized that the bear was asking him for help and cautiously followed the animal to the river. When they arrived at the river, Sean Feverheart searched for the bear cub while the mother bear still accompanied him. But he didn't see Baden Johannes. It was strange. Then suddenly a dark head emerged from the water. Sean focused his eyes on the spot and sure enough, the bear cub's head reappeared as if it was holding onto a rock. The water flowed over the bear cub. He wouldn't be able to hold on for much longer. Sean suspected that the mother bear had unsuccessfully tried to save her cub by herself and had gotten injured in the process. Realizing she couldn't do it alone, she had gone to seek help and had found Sean. Sean couldn't allow the bear cub to drown in front of his eyes. But he knew from personal experience how strong and dangerous the current was in this part of the river. Jumping in without preparing would have been a life-threatening mistake. He had to come up with a plan. Quickly he fetched his fishing gear and the dress he usually used for his fish basket. He securely fastened the rope to his waist, leaving a long piece of it in front of him. He tied the other end of the rope firmly to a tree on the riverbank. Then he resolutely jumped into the water. The current proved to be even stronger than he had feared. With all his might, Sean fought his way to the rocks where he had last seen the bear cub. Sean's experience as a former Navy SEAL was beneficial, as an inexperienced swimmer might not have survived in this rushing current. He approached some rocks and clung tightly, trying to see exactly where the cub was. For a moment he only heard the growling and groaning of the mother bear on the shore, who was running back and forth frantically and was visibly worried. But she seemed to understand that it was too dangerous to venture into the raging water again. All her hope of seeing her cub again now rested on this unusual man. Sean was breathing heavily and was confused. The rushing flood and the constant washing over by the water made it difficult for him to determine the exact position of the baby bear. He was overjoyed when he saw the bear cub's head appear in front of him. He just needed to swim further downstream to reach the cub. But then, in a tragic moment, the bear cub lost its grip on the rocks and was swept away by the river. His head disappeared in the dark water within a fraction of a second. Sean jumped in without hesitation and swam with all his might. If he lost the bear cub at this spot, it could be lost forever. The little bear dived under and it seemed it had stopped struggling. The situation looked bleak, but Sean kept fighting desperately and swam after the bear. But the rope tied around his waist kept getting tighter, eventually reaching its end. When the bear cub's head reappeared, he grabbed it just in time. He was worried the bear cub might resist or scratch him, but the bear just lay limp in his arms. But that was far from the end of it. Now, the goal was to reach the safe shore again. Sean knew he needed both arms to swim. He grabbed the rope he had set aside earlier and tied it around the bear cub. Now Sean could use all his strength to bring it to safety. The fact that the cub was motionless helped him, but at the same time it was also a big problem. It may have already been too late to save the bear cub's life. What would happen if he reached the bear mother with the lifeless cub? This could have unthinkable consequences for Sean. But he couldn't focus on that at the moment. All his energy had to be used to bring them to safety. He felt his energy waver, only adrenaline kept him going. Suddenly his feet touched the ground. They had reached the shallow water. Sean was able to pick up the bear cub and run out of the water. The bear mother came towards them at breathtaking speed. For such an injured animal, she was surprisingly fast. Sean knew he had to untie the rope from the bear cub before the bear reached them. He didn't even have time to glance at the calf before the mother bear grabbed it. However, as the bear took a few steps towards the forest, she suddenly began to sway dangerously. The next moment she fell to the ground with a dull thud. The baby bear crawled over her, but she did not move. Looked nearby to see what the problem was. It was only then that he noticed the cuts were worse than he'd imagined. Apparently the adrenaline kept her going. And now that her baby was alive and safe, she completely collapsed. Sean couldn't believe it. He had saved the bear cub only to watch it be taken right in front of his eyes. He felt helpless. He had no cell reception out there, and there was no time to walk all the way home. In this hopeless moment, something unexpected happened. Suddenly he heard something in the distance. It sounded like a pickup truck. He shouted loudly and suddenly he was surrounded by a few foresters. Some hikers who had seen him earlier when he had rescued the calf from the river hurried out of the forest until they caught him. Then they alerted the rangers, who arrived as quickly as possible. They had a large transport crate with them, and since the mother bear still wasn't responding, they could safely take care of her. They dressed her wounds to stop the bleeding and then carefully loaded her into the vehicle. The rescue team brought the two bears to the nearest wildlife clinic to get professional care for them. People hoped to save the bear's life. Without her, rehabilitating the baby would not be easy. The mother had to undergo surgery the same day. She even got infections in some of the wounds. The cub was still very weak from its life-threatening experience, so they kept it calm to rest and recover. The efforts to heal the mother bear were intensive, but the presence of her baby seemed to give her the necessary strength to recover. Fortunately, both animals recovered over time. And finally the day came when they were to return to their proper home, the forest. The rescue team had developed a plan for the release and informed Sean about it. Together, they met at the release site further up in the forest. The moment the cage doors opened was magical. The mama bear immediately ran towards the forest. The cub hesitated for a moment, looked at its mother, and then followed her to freedom. Sean could barely hold back his tears. He was proud to have saved the little family, even though it was a bit sad that he would probably never see them again. If this story touched you as much as it touched us, you should watch this video. A woman meets a gorilla from her childhood after 12 years. Then, the unbelievable happens. Click here to find out the whole story.